Hi there, readers. Today in Reading Workshop, we are going to be continuing talking about series reading and becoming experts on characters. And remember, when you're reading a series, it's not necessarily different books. It could be, a series would be different books about the same character. But like in our Frog and Toad book, it could also be different stories within the same book that are about the same character. So just because in our example of Frog and Toad, we're only reading one book, it's still a series because we're reading several stories about the same characters. So, in our last lesson, we talked about collecting information about the main characters, and we were trying to come up with traits that would describe those main characters. And today we're going to really just take it a step further, and we are going to notice the things that are the same across the series. So today's main takeaway is really that when you read a bunch of books or stories across a series, you'll notice that sometimes things about the character, things that are the same in story after story or book after book. So you'll kind of start seeing a pattern in how that character acts or behaves or how they respond to problems. So we're really just going to be continuing our next story in Frog and Toad and kind of looking out to see what's the same. What did we notice in this story that we also saw in the story we read together last week? So, I do kind of just want to go over the character traits chart before we start reading. Because last week we said that Toad, remember Toad, he was laying in his bed and he didn't want to get up to go do all of these chores. So we said that maybe Toad is a little bit lazy. And then we also had Frog. Might change the color for Frog. We'll make him green. We said that Frog he was there and he was telling Toad, well, if you don't do it today, you're gonna have to do it tomorrow. So we said that he was being honest. And he was also being helpful, like, all right, Toad, you really got to get it together. So I would say that those are two words that we said would describe Frog. And then we said that Toad was more on the lazy side. But in the end, remember, he got it together and he started cleaning up his house. So let's kind of see if we can find some similar traits in this next story that we're going to read that kind of remind us of what we already know about both of these characters. Okay, so this story is called The Kite. Frog and Toad went out to fly a kite. They went to a large meadow where the wind was strong. Our kite will fly up and up, said Frog. It will fly all the way up to the top of the sky. Toad, said Frog, I will hold the ball of string. You hold the kite and run. Toad ran across the meadow. He ran as fast as his short legs could carry him. The kite went up in the air. It fell to the ground with a bump. Toad heard laughter. 3 robins were sitting in a bush. That kite will not fly, said the robins. You may as well give up. Toad ran back to Frog. Frog, said Toad, this kite will not fly. I give up. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and I want us to notice what's the same in this story about Toad that was already true in the story we read together last week. I would say that Toad's giving up here, just like he did in the first book where he didn't want to clean up because, oh, it was going to be too much work. He was like, no, I can't do it. And so, same thing here. He wants to give up already. So, that's something similar. So, we're noticing how characters are the same across different stories. All right, let's keep going and we'll see if maybe we can notice something about Frog. We must make a second try, said Frog. Wave the kite over your head. Perhaps that will make it fly. Toad ran back across the meadow. He waved the kite over his head. The kite went up in the air, and then it fell down with a thud. What a joke, said the robins. That kite will never get off the ground. Toad ran back to Frog. "This kite is a joke," he said. "It will never get off the ground." "We have to make a third try," said Frog. "Wave the kite over your head and jump up and down. Perhaps that will make it fly." So I'm already noticing something about Frog that kind of is similar to what we read about him in the first story. In this story, Frog isn't letting Toad give up. He's like, "No, just because it didn't work once, we need to try again. And even then, just because it didn't work a second time, we need to try it again." So Frog is really not letting Toad give up. He's there for Frog and he's trying to be helpful. And so that's kind of how he's similar in this story to how he was in the first story. So that's really all I wanted to go over today. Again, when you're reading a series, and again, that can be different books or just different stories in the same book, or even just across chapters in a chapter book, you can notice things that are the same across the series. So, as you're reading today and this week in your book club books, I want you to kind of be noticing some things about your characters that are the same, maybe even looking back at this character traits chart to kind of help you remember. And when we meet in our book clubs for small group, I'll be asking you what some things are that you've been noticing about how your characters are the same, like throughout each chapter or across the different stories that you're reading. So that's something that I want you to keep in mind. And then I will be posting the roles that I'm going to have you do for book club. I'll put some directions for that in the actual assignment. So all I want you to do with this lesson is to just kind of be mindful and kind of maybe keep some post-it notes or write down some things that are the same, maybe some characteristics that you notice that are the same. And then your other assignment that you'll have done for when we meet with our book clubs is one of the book club roles, kind of like we did in class together. So there'll be more information about that in the assignments. And again, if you have questions, just let me know. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.